Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the World Championship Series for Season 2. We've completed a couple of groups already in America. We've played 4 groups and 8 players have already qualified to the season finals. But now we're in Cologne, Germany to finish the round of 32, to find the 16 players that will represent their region in the season finals in Toronto, Canada, come June the 26th to 28th. Today we have one of the most difficult and one of the toughest groups of the round of 32. But before we talk about that, it would be my pleasure to introduce you to 2 people to my left-hand side. We have, traveling all the way from Australia, our season 1 top 16 finisher. We have Pig.
It's a pleasure to be here. It's got some exciting groups lined up, and being here on the other side of the desk, I'm just looking forward to watching some amazing games.
And we've stolen Rotterdam from the North American studios. Of course, Kevin van der Kooi, Rotterdam, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh my, such a warm welcome, Sean. It's been over a year since I've actually been part of a WCS show in this studio, but it's going to be a lot of fun, and not just 1 or 2 days, but 4 days of non-stop action. Count me in.
I'm looking forward to working with you guys over these next 4 days. It's going to be a lot of fun. Guys, let's take a look at the tournament structure. For a lot of you at home that are joining us for the very first time, we're going to be going through the round of 32 and completing the round of 32. We've played the 4 through groups in America, as mentioned before, and the next 4, E, F, G, and H, will be completed in the next 4 days here in Cologne, Germany. Before we go through to the top 16, which will be the season finals. Looking forward to going over to Toronto. We're going to have a lot of fun. Rotterdam. We'll go from 16 players all the way to 1 where we'll crown the Season 2 World Champion.
Yeah, I've been to a lot of StarCraft II events over the years, but the 2 events that I participated in, the ones in Canada, they were awesome. They are absolutely up there in my all-time favorite events. The fans out there, they come out in full force. They're so passionate. It's going to be one hell of an event, and you hear it as well. When the players talk about this WCS season, obviously every pro wants to perform in WCS. They want to win money. They want to get points, but going to Canada, that's just a little extra. These studio shows, they're awesome, and it's always a great, experience, but everybody wants to go to Canada and play in front of what you already know will be an amazing audience.
And as much as, the ticket to Canada is on the line for all these players, there's a lot of money on the line, Pig, and WCS points. Talk us through a little bit about this.
I mean, it's just such a big opportunity. You've got players like Hydra and Snoot, of course, just powering through, but you've got these underdog players as well. And everyone here knows this is the most important tournament. It's not just about the money, it's about the prestige, and most important of all, those BlizzCon points. You get 2,000 points for winning this tournament. It's absolutely massive, and of course that prize pool is not too small either.
And not just money on the line, 30,000 for first place. Every single player that's played in the Premier League guaranteed $4,500, which is of course a lot of money for these guys breaking through and kind of solidifying their position within the Premier League. But let's talk a little bit about the bigger goal here, which is the points, the ranking, the WCS points that are going through the year. We've already got, as you can see here, the #1 player in the world currently is Life, who's been up there for a long time now. For the majority of this year has been placed as #1, with Gumiho's recent performance at DreamHack has moved up to top 16 in the world. But Roddy, 4 players here, Hydra, Snoot, in very crucial position in this ranking, and of course Lilbow and Kelazhur.
Yeah, everybody has their own story here, right, when it comes to WCS points. Even though you could say Lilbow and Kelazhur are in a similar boat, but for Hydra, he's looking very good. 8th spot right now, nothing wrong with that. If he makes a reasonable run here or in Season 3, then he should be fine. But this is obviously not a moment to slack, because if he would get eliminated here today, then he's going to drop, because other people will earn a lot of points. They're going to overtake him. But below Hydra, Snoot currently ranked 25th. Last year, we saw how close Snoot can get to BlizzCon, but he needs to perform. He needs to make it out of this pretty difficult group and at least make another quarterfinals, if not a semifinals. Because if he doesn't, I mean, he's one of our top dogs when it comes to a foreign scene, but he needs to get a points here.
A lot of hours, a lot of hard work and dedication has been put in for this very day for these 4 players. And let's take a look at Group A, just to have a look at the players that we're going to be going through in the next couple of hours here. So Group E, we have Lilbow, Hydra, Snoot, and Kelazhur. Talk to us about these players here, Pig.
Oh, you've got, of course, Hydra, just the absolute dominating Korean titan. You know, he's since moving to the US and coming out to the foreign scene, he's just been absolutely dominating. Here, he's really just looking to do what everyone expects him to do. He's looking to take out the group in first place. Snoot, on the other hand, definitely probably the close runner for second, but we shouldn't be counting out Lilbow or Kelazhur either. Both of these players, while not being quite as well known, are very, very capable of taking games and sets off these guys. And I think that's what makes this group so interesting, is even these two guys who are maybe not quite as favored, in any day of competition, they could easily take a set off either of these top two players, Hydra and Snoot.
Yeah, Rotterdam, your thoughts on these four?
I totally agree. Hydra being the overwhelming favorite going into this group just because of his track record over the last few months. And then there is Snoot. And I've often said, you know, like what I think most impressive is of Snoot and players like Bunny as well, is that they often win the matches we expect them to win. But that's so difficult in StarCraft II. Being consistent, especially in a foreign scene, you know, where you don't really live in a team house, it is very hard. So you look at this group, yes, Snoot is probably supposed to make it out, but that's really easier said than done. He's going to have to work very hard for it. We know he's been practicing a lot. We know how dedicated he is, but it still doesn't mean it's going to be easy, not at all.
Well, thank you very much for your overview of these players, and we'll go more into specifics very shortly. But before we do that, let's take a closer look at the four players that will be fighting tonight.
Group E, Season 1's finalist. One of Europe's leading players and two hopefuls looking to break out. Hydra returns for another attempt at the championship, another attempt to take what was so close, but so far. We have Snoot, who with Bunny is leading the charge for European representation at the Global Finals. Tonight is a must-win for him. Which leaves us with Kelazhur and Lilbow, players with not much to lose, but everything to gain. This is their shot, their chance to be remembered today.
So a big night for each one of these players in their own regard here. A big day, a big moment. You've had these big moments as a player, Pig, but before we talk about strategy and play styles, let's talk a little bit about these players as individuals. We've got Snoot, and we know a lot about him. We know a lot about Hydra as well. But let's talk a little bit about Lilbow and Kelazhur. You've lived with Lilbow before.
Yeah, I got to know Lilbow really well last year. We were living in the My Insanity house for quite a while. He's now, of course, in the Millennium House in France. Lilbow's a player who he's just, I think about since the start of 2014, he's been stringing together these individual performances which have been kind of shocking the people that are really deep in the community. He's been taking out players like Hyun recently in DreamHack Tours. His PvZ is absolutely phenomenal, but he hasn't quite been able to string together that kind of long weekend performance which gets you to the top 8, to the top 4 of one of these weekend tournaments. And also he hasn't had as much luck in WCS. This is his first time in Premier League since Season 1 last year. So this is a really important moment for him to get back here, show what he can do, because he's the #1 French player. He's making a name for himself in the pro community, but now he needs to show the viewers, the spectators, what he's really made of.
And Rotterdam, talk to us a little bit about Diego Swimmer here, also known as Kelazhur. You've cast him a couple of times. He's been to your studio in California.
Yeah, he's a really colorful character, and it's a very fun story as well, because the first time we got to meet Kelazhur was in 2014, January, Sao Paulo. He participated in the open bracket tournament back then of an IEM, and then you look at it and you think like, that's really cool, he can participate in the big tournament once, but that's just because we are here in Sao Paulo. But to see the growth that he has made, you know, a few months ago, he played in Burbank, California, and now he's here. Well, 2 years ago, we looked at him as like, well, he's only here because he's a local player. So it's a really interesting story, and he definitely did get very good over time.
All right, well, thank you once again for your insight. But now let's get into the matchups now. We'll talk a lot about the Zerg versus Zerg, which will happen, which I know you've got a lot to say, Pig, being a Zerg professional yourself. But let's talk about the first match of the day. Lilbow versus Kelazhur, our two lower ranked players that are coming to this, our two lesser experienced players, and the two players that I think a lot of people are looking at for 3rd and 4th. If you're going to look at this, you're looking at Snoot and Hydra as the favorites. Roddy, talk to me about this matchup.
It's a very hard to predict matchup, also because these two guys are not players that run into each other a whole lot. And at least they have never played against each other. And of course, you know, Kelazhur used to be only South America, then eventually started breaking in the North American scene a little more often. Currently lives in the Root House, but still, they've got their own territory. They've got their own players that they face off against pretty often. For instance, Lilbow and Snoot run into each other all the time. But these two guys have never played against each other. What I'm expecting is that Kelazhur is he's a wild card. You know, he's going to play crazy. He loves to be aggressive, loves to multitask, and I think he's just going to try to be the guy to break Lilbow, and Lilbow probably approaches this matchup looking at it like, well, I know that that guy's good, but I think I'm better as long as I don't make any very silly mistakes, no unforced errors. I just, try to play it out slow and probably defend for a while.
Who's the favorite here, Pig? I mean, this is a pretty close series, right?
I think Lilbow, just from his experience, he's been around a bit longer, he's been having a bit more success, but I definitely think either player could take it. As Ro32 was saying, I think what is really interesting to me is how Lilbow is going to play this, because historically in his PvT, he hasn't really been the just turtle up and defend 3 bases player. He does a lot of 2 base timings. He loves to do drop down a few gateways and counter attack after he catches, say, a medevac. All he needs is like the slightest sign of weakness, and he loves to go very aggressive. So I think it's going to be very, very interesting to see what openers both players bring. I think I'd favor Lilbow a bit, but it could go either way.
Is there a bit of clash of style when we look at these two players? I mean, the Europeans play slightly different to, the North American players and Kelazhur from Brazil. How does that play in here?
It's hard to say. It mostly comes down to a player, I think, not specifically to a region. In PvZ, there is definitely more of a characteristic style or like a very distinctive style from these players. But, in PvT, I think it's just going to be your relatively standard PvT where you have one very aggressive player and the other player that kind of just sees how it goes. If he sees an opportunity, then he's not afraid to do something crazy. But I still think that Lilbow looks at this and saying like, okay, I shouldn't mess up. But I don't think he's underestimating either, because we saw the players in Season 1 when they went up against Kelazhur. Tilo even stated back then in the interview, he's like, yeah, I underestimated him the first series. He was way better than I thought he was. And I'm sure Lilbow will not make that mistake, because by now we know that Kelazhur is a very strong Terran.
And he hasn't really got that much experience under his belt when it comes to playing in the WCS. You can see his stats here. He's only played a couple of games. But let's go back to Season 1 Ro32. He had a very difficult group, but he had a very close group because of the way and how well he played.
He was amazing. He was one of the coolest stories of Season 1, because we had these Latin American qualifiers, and then like people looked at it like, well, now those players have a free win.
Right.
And then Kelazhur came into that group, defeated Tilo in his first series of the day, and then almost managed to take out Paul, the later on to be champion of WCS Season 1. So even when he was eliminated in the round of 32, he was one of the brightest stars, in my opinion, when it comes to, new players on the block, and he definitely left one hell of an impression.
And that's something that he could latch on today. But if we focus on Lilbow, so Lilbow in a very similar fashion, you brought it up once already, Pig. This is only his second attempt in WCS. He played in the round of 32 in the first season of 2014, and it's been a long time since he's been able to come back, and he's lost to multiple opponents in Challenger over the last couple of months and years, I suppose you could look at it. Why is he here today?
I think he's just been improving for a long time, and I think the way the WCS format works, Lilbow's been a little bit unlucky sometimes. He's had some really, really tough challenger opponents, and I think that's kind of led to him maybe not getting as many opportunities up on this stage. But here today, once again, drawing a pretty tough group, but I think he's actually very confident. Speaking to him just yesterday, he had a bit of a sly smile when I was asking him about the group. I know personally, whenever he goes up against a Zerg, he's very confident. And no matter how the first match goes, he's going to be playing a Zerg. So I think he's feeling quite confident here. And as a player, I think he's just been hungry for this for so long. He's been so close. He's been almost there. He wants to push up to that next level. He really wants to get there so badly.
And you know a lot about that. Your story last season is that you wanted it badly. You were able to advance from this stage back there where the players are. But right now, these two players, safe to say, the weaker of the 4. Talk to us about the importance of this first game now, Pig. You're going up there, you're playing against a weaker opponent like you, and you got these maps here just slightly to your right, actually, Pig, if you look to the top right. But the importance of the first game, the first match, it's huge.
It's absolutely massive. In this sort of format, you sometimes, if you lose the first match especially, there's always the chance that you can end up facing, even if you win in the losers match, you can end up facing the same person who defeated you in the first match. So if you happen to be facing up against a player who's sort of your Achilles heel, you want to take them out in the first match and get it out of the way, because otherwise you can be eliminated by that same player, and it just takes so much pressure off you to get that first map out of the way. Then you've got 2 lives, you've got 2 different games, you can start taking more risks in your play, you can feel a lot more free and a lot more loose.
All right, so Roddy, pretty standard map pull here before we go into the first map.
I'm actually a little bit surprised, man. Cactus Valley is going to be our second map. Now, I've played my fair share of PvTs on Cactus Valley, and obviously I'm no Lilbow, not even close, but I think that is a very, very, very difficult map for most Protoss players to play on, because there is there's just like the distance on that map. Medevac's are absolutely phenomenal. So I think he has something special planned. We're going to start things off on Iron Fortress. That is not a huge surprise, Sean. That's a map we see pretty frequently. It can be difficult for Protoss against Zerg. I mean, there is a big Zerg symbol in the middle of the map for a reason pick. But I think in PvT, this is a pretty cool map. It's a pretty fair map. I don't think Kelazhur minds it because there is a lot of surface area to drop in the main base. I'm really excited right now. Like Iron Fortress first and then Cactus Valley. Like I don't know what Lilbow has in store for us, but it better be good.
Final thoughts here, Pig, before we get ready for the commentators?
Oh, there's just so much room between that third base there and everything. I think Iron Fortress is going to be a really good, exciting map to start things off. We're going to see a lot of fighting between these guys. I'm just excited to see how it goes.
All right, well, big game here coming up between these two players. A great opportunity to move forward to the winners match in this group and challenge for a position to fight for placement at the season finals. We're going to head off to the commentators, who, of course, is going to be Todd and Kelazhur.
Thank you very much, boys. A fantastic start there from our guys at the desk as we now get into our first game in our 4 days of the World Championship Series here in the round of 32. And what a way to start things off, because these are two players that come from very, very different regions and pretty much epitomize how the WCS system is right now, with one coming from Brazil, one coming from France and facing off against here.
Two words are going to collide.
Pretty much.
Would you say so, Kelazhur?
I would say so.
Yeah, stylistically, it's very interesting as well, because you have two players that, for the most part, like to play standard, except maybe for Lilbow. Lilbow always says he likes to play standard, but then he mixes in a lot of all-ins. So I'm curious to see how many of those he's going to be using, on which map, and how it's going to go for him against somebody as solid as Kelazhur. I have a lot of respect for Kelazhur, man. I've played against him, and I always respect people that beat me a lot, and he beat me a lot.
Well, Lilbow, likewise, on the other side of all of this, is somebody that in Europe has garnered this reputation of fear from a lot of pro gamers at the moment. He looked really, really good against Thermal in his challenger match. So moving on through this, is Kelazhur going to be worried here about Lilbow?
I don't think he's going into this match as like one of the big favorites. So being worried, I don't know. Like I think as long as he plays what he's good at, he plays this standard play style, this solid play style of his, and does it well. I think he might be okay. Then again, Lilbow is capable of great things, as you said. He was looked at some point as one of the guys that was really out there and rising in terms of becoming one of the very good foreign players that we have, and then kind of slumped for a little bit. Had very good results online, but offline never quite made it. Same thing for WCS. Hardly, achieved anything in WCS, but now here these days, it might finally be his time to play really well and go far.
And then on the other side, of course, Kelazhur, who was able to come through qualifiers down in the South American region. Moving on through the round of 32 here, obviously, he goes into this group being the weakest player. This group is extremely stacked.
You think so?
We already heard, well, I think so. I mean, we already heard the boys at the desk saying about how strong this group is. Probably the strongest of the round of 32 at the moment. So Kelazhur, he's got some really big shoes to fill here.
To some extent, I agree. But at the same time, I feel like this is a group where like a lot of... It's still very open, in terms of who will qualify, except maybe other than for Hydra, who I think is above the rest, supposedly.
All right, well, let's get into it. It's going to be game number 1 in Series 1 of Day 1 here at the round of 32 for the World Championship Series. As it's good to be back here for Season 2. And we were here previously for Challenger. Lilbow did very, very well here in Europe, as did Kelazhur. Now both of them will face off on Iron Fortress to start things out. So let's jump in. As we do have, spawning up to the top right-hand corner, it is our red Protoss representing Team Millennium. It is Lilbow. A fearsome opponent here at the moment in Europe, with a dangerous reputation. As we have, spawning up to the top left-hand corner, it's our blue Terran representing Team Root. It is Kelazhur. And as I mentioned before, Team Liquid, 5 people moving into the round of 32, but Root, 4 players in the round of 32. An extremely, extremely impressive result for Root so far, even just through to the round of 32.
Yeah, that's a lot of players, actually. And they're a team, that's... Take the competition and the game very seriously. They have a team house. in which a lot of these players practice. I think Kelazhur, both Kelazhur and Hydra actually live there. And now here going into this match, Kelazhur is a Terran who I think personally loves, to play standard. There isn't really cheesy Terrans, to be honest. I guess it's, comes with the territory. You don't really see Terrans that love to proxy stuff, that go for benches or like 1 base or 2 base a lot anymore. It's really all about, taking a 3rd base, playing solid, dropping here and there. A lot of the time, that's going to mean here for Kelazhur, an SCV scout early on, some eBay block, into a Widowmine drop, which really has been one of the things that we've seen a lot from Terran these days. And usually, one of the things about Kelazhur is that he likes to drop Widowmines a lot. Kind of like, Bunny. Bunny has been doing that a lot. Yeah. He even says it's so funny. Like, Bunny goes into a match, and before the match in itself, he says very openly, well, I'm going to be dropping Widowmines. Are you ready? Okay. I think he said that once before playing Showtime, and then still did really well with those Widowmine drops.
And that's all good and dandy, but is Lilbow in a good position to deal with that kind of play? We saw that a lot from Thermal going up against Lilbow in Challenger. Lilbow did have a bit of a hard time in game number 1, but then from that point on, stabilized against it very, very well. So does Lilbow usually have the tools to deal with those kinds of things?
Most of the time he does well against this, because I think that Lilbow on ladder, he practices mostly, standard play with Colossus, Blink, Double Forge, 3rd base and all that. But in tournaments, he's been doing a lot of all-ins. He just played against Marine King at DreamHack, and I talked to him beforehand. He told me he was planning on playing it straight up, played straight up the first game, got absolutely crushed, and then all-ins. So I asked him about it. I was like, well, why didn't you stick to the plan? And he was like, well, after I lost first game and I didn't even know how, I thought I had to do something drastic, so I played very aggressive in all-ins. So if he's backed into a corner and somehow, if he loses, either an upsetting game or a game where he doesn't really know what he could have done better, he might just go into a cheese. And look at this here, already opening with the double gas here in this first game against the CC first of Kelazhur.
So what can this lead into here, Todd? Obviously, getting all of that gas gives you options to go into higher base tech plays. Yeah. He already had 3 in his first gas, with 2 at the moment in this one, so maybe he'll be rallying into that.
I think Stargate or Blink here are the two most likely options for Lilbow. The thing is, when I saw the map pool, like, this is not your typical map pool that I feel is being played here, especially with Iron Fortress first. Like Expedition Lost was Vito, this is a map where Lilbow loves to do the Blink play, the old school Blink play with a lot of gateways. But here on this map, if he went for something like Blink, he might be able to do very well here as well. Even if he went for a Stargate, opening for a Stargate here, then going into a macro game would be nice. And I think he's going to be a Stargate. Look at the minerals and gas right now. He's just got enough. So he went for the Nexus, Mothership Core, and then the Stargate. So he's going to be able to deny the scouting early on very nicely against this here, assuming he sends the Mothership Core to his ramp.
Yeah.
He doesn't know if it's a Reaper right now. That's why he left it next to the Nexus. Let's see if Kelazhur goes forward, though, and try to spot the Stargate. Nope, he can't.
Bit of a risk. Bit of a risk that SCV is going to have to get out of there. He is playing a little bit defensively behind all of this because he went for that command center first, having the bunker at the front as well. Is going to help him a little bit if anything were to come along aggressively. But at the moment, Lilbow, obviously, he's going to be coming in from the air.
I think Kelazhur here, by the way, with his scouts, with the SCV scout, he saw when the Nexus went down. And the Nexus went down a little bit later when compared to when it usually would, if you go for a 1 gas Nexus, because he was mining a lot more gas and he made the 2nd gas, so he didn't have as many minerals. If Kelazhur is able to realize what's happening and that the Nexus was made later, then he's gonna know there's a 2nd gas, and then it's either, a Twilight for either Blink or DTs, or Stargates. And eBay and turrets counters 2 of those things. So if he's able to realize, then it'd be really nice for him. But I mean, other than that, I guess he's gonna have to keep on scouting, keep on putting some effort into it, and here having to pause for a second.
Yeah.
Hopefully that doesn't take too much from his focus.
Yeah, we're just waiting momentarily here whilst Kelazhur fixes the issues that he does have. But going to Iron Fortress here, obviously this rotationally symmetrical map here, Todd. Do the spawning points here really favor anybody? Does this allow the Terran, for example, to try and drop the natural better here for the Protoss? How do these spawning positions work out?
I don't particularly dislike it that much here for Protoss on this map. Your natural is where you're going to be standing a lot of the time. The thing is, on this map, taking a 3rd base can be really, really difficult because it's quite far away from your natural, and then defending against drops in 3 potential places against a Terran like Kelazhur, who's very good at dropping, is going to be very hard. So Lilbow sometimes he's going to adjust to the map very well, and sometimes, you know, do a 2-base all-in. And we might see something like that here. We'll see how this develops. Going for the Robo here very quickly. This is solid here by Lilbow of an opener. The thing is, doing damage with the initial Oracle is not going to be that important. Obviously, it's nice if he can, but he's not going to have that many units. He's like opened up to quite a few counterattacks, but there is only 2 racks. So I don't think that Kelazhur will go for a counterattack too fast.
Maybe pick off a few Marines or find what you can get here. He's got to be careful. Those Marines are well positioned in that mineral line. Likewise, Bunker and Turret's just about to finish at the natural. Should be able to shoo this off, but Lilbow finds himself a small opportunity. Does catch himself 1 or 2 SCVs, maybe even a Marine. Getting a bit feisty though, and will lose a bit more health than he was initially anticipating.
It was pretty nice here, being able to find some room to get some kills. Lilbow is currently rank 4 on the European ladder in Grandmaster, doing very well for himself, even though he admitted to me he's not been playing nearly as much as he used to as of late. And Kelazhur is ranked 26, I think, on Europe ladder.
Oh, nice pickup from Lilbow there to be able to hunt down that Widowmine. And unfortunately, you don't have Drilling Claws this early, my friend, so that's not going to be able to burrow in time to get away.
Additional gates being made early on here for Lilbow. So even though he went for Stargate and then Robo, I think it's really nice that he realized that, you know, if he was to be attacked, he needs a few units on the ground with gateway units to be able to hold. So going for the 2 additional gateways is going to make him safer against any kind of attack early on. And then behind this, the Twilight goes down. And we'll see whether or not he goes for a Forge or 2 or even 0.
Yeah, we could see that. Obviously, at the moment, Kelazhur playing a good information game, trying to keep an eye on his opponent's 3rd base, the more usual location, because of how the spawning positions have worked out, leaving that SCV down there, just to keep tabs on his opponent's tempo more than anything.
Yeah.
Obviously, he doesn't want that to really kind of overcross a mark.
Yeah, so by the look of things, right now, Lilbow, he wants to play a straight-up game. Pretty much like what he did, you know, versus Marine King.
Yeah.
When they played at DreamHack, you know, game 1, try and play it solid. And then I guess if he loses, or this game goes bad for him, maybe he will adjust. Oh, wow, that was close.
Yeah, good reactions there, though, by Lilbow to throw down the Photon Overcharge and kill that off quickly. It's a little bit of a shame, I guess, for Kelazhur, who would have technically had 2 Widow Mines with that, but because the one died off with the Oracle, it actually hinders that initial drop from doing as much as he could have potentially done.
I feel like Lilbow, you know, he was mostly known for his PvP or PvZ for a very long time, but his versus Terran recently has been very impressive to me. He won 3 of the last 4 encounters in the games that he played against Marine Lord. One of those not too long ago, you know, some show matches that I hosted myself, in which he played pretty impressively, you know, and played very aggressively, actually, you know. Again, on Expedition Lost, he went for the 7 gates, Blink, Stalker, old school, all in, and did very well with that. So he's definitely one of those players that's capable of mixing in a lot of builds like that.
A very good scouting as well by the Oracle to actually spot that potential drop if it was actually going to do anything. I don't think it can get much done at all. And oh yeah, that's a good point, Funker. Thank you very much.
Yeah, like going for mech on this map and in these positions, I'm starting to wonder if Kelazhur wants to go for 2 base here. No 3rd CC has been planned on just yet. And the thing is, a lot of Protosses, like, I mean, it's going to be very hard to scout. This game wouldn't have been that hard if Lilbow had done a better job of flying around. But what he saw in the start so far is the 2 barracks. Now he's going to see a tank. This can still be, you know, an anti-blink timing tank, but he needs to realize as early as possible that he's up against Blink. We saw Parting at DreamHack against Gumiho do really well against Blink plus Colossus. But it was because Gumiho was taking a 3rd base and Parting was attacking left and right. You know, moving back, always, you know, avoiding taking the fight head on against a lot of tanks. In this game...
Oh, good block there.
Yeah.
Was able to deny any of those Hellions really doing much at all. Not really losing too many probes, so really good blink back to be able to block those out and kill them off. And now, does Lilbow change anything up now that he's got the full confirmation that it's going to be mech here? Or does he just keep going down the path that he's at the moment?
I think now that he started with, you know, that unit composition, he might just stick with this. The one thing that he's doing really well is that he keeps on checking whether or not there's a 3rd base from Kelazhur. Sometimes, you know, you go on kind of what I like to call autopilot. And you're like, well, I got 100 something supply, I got 1-1, I got Colossus, I got Blink. I got enough to defend, basically. I'm going to start a 3rd base. That's actually the wrong move here against this. Kelazhur is going to do a 2 base. So Lilbow, if he was to start a third base, he'd be in trouble, but he has identified that there is no third base. Look, he's even scouting all around the map right now. So he went for more gateways. He's getting charged. He's only getting the attack upgrade.
Exactly.
That's so good. You don't need to get armor against mech. You only need attack.
Yeah. It's an overcommitment of resources, and also, you know, it doesn't really pack as much punch when you're defending or with that kind of defensive style. So this is cool. He's going to reveal his entire army and know what is up. It's quite a strong army, to say the least, here for Kelazhur at the moment, with similar army supplies and with Charge and Templar archives on the way, and Immortals. If all of this lines up for Lilbow, surely this is a really, really powerful army against what Kelazhur has.
The stars are lining for him, guys.
Yeah.
It's funny, Kelazhur, though, it's not pure mech push here that he wants to go for. You see, he went for a bunch of Marines, some Marauders as well. He's got Steam Pack. So it's actually a really weird attack that he's going to go for. I don't think I've seen anything quite like that before. Let's see if he pulls the boys. So far, not. He's moving a little bit around with his army. He's scanning for an observer here. Lilbow, though, if he can get like 2 to 3 Archons to tank, he's going to be in a fantastic position.
How is he supposed to deal with 4 Colossi here? Is it up to the siege tanks to set up a good position and slowly move forward? But if he does that, surely there's buying so much time. He's only got 6 Vikings available to him at the moment.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be enough. Like these Colossi, they're going to roast this army. I guess, you know, in terms of, you know, the mech units that Kelazhur has, they are not going to do the worst job of like tanking a lot of the damage. But look at this army of Zealots. Like, it almost feels like this army of Zealot alone will do decent against this army of Kelazhur. Like, they're like an infinite number. There's 30 Zealots.
Yeah, that's quite the battalion. He's going to have a really, really difficult time actually being able to deal with that. With Charge as well.
The army supply, though. 141 here for Kelazhur, 115 for Lilbow, who needs to add more Zealots, and especially Archons. Archons are going to tank a ton against this.
Hellbats are going to do quite a bit of damage to those Zealots when they actually eventually charge in.
He whops in Stalkers. A little bit surprised here.
And he may end up losing the Militia Corps. That has full energy, so he doesn't necessarily want to be losing that very, very early on in this fight. It's going to go down, though, without any time warps actually going down. A lot of the Zealots actually already charge on forward. This is a great position, I feel, for Kelazhur, but I don't know if it's going to hold out just yet. The Colossi, though, at the back are doing a lot of damage, and they're going pretty much unhindered here, Todd.
Yeah, attacking into tanks that are already siege can be dangerous, but Lilbow, it looks like he has enough. He was 2-1 on upgrades against a 1-1 mech army, and he's going to hold this, and then behind this, there is pretty much no transition here for Kelazhur, not having a third command center. All he can do is pump out more units, go for another wave. Lilbow is now confident enough to start a third base. Even goes for the 3-2 upgrades. I mean, why not?
Yeah, he feels very, very comfortable at this point. He's got Immortals on the way as well. Doesn't really want to push on too far forwards by the looks of things towards that natural. But with the upgrade position he's in, with potential transitions that he has as well, is there any need for him to really press the issue against the Terran here?
No. I think against this kind of play, especially against somebody locked on 2 bases, and I mean, that's me you're asking. That's going to be the obvious answer.
Oh, yeah,
you sit back and you take one more, please. Yeah. Even if the right choice was to attack, I would have said that.
Well, third base is on the way now, away from the Terran, obviously, with how these positions play out. Don't want to be taking it too close to him, especially when your opponent has access to things like siege tanks with the kind of style that Kelazhur has been going for. So he's going to try and build up again. But is this just Kelazhur's another ditch effort, go for another push, and if it doesn't work, it's completely over?
Yeah, I think that's all he can do here at this point. I'm a little bit surprised that he didn't pull SCVs, actually. Imagine, he had 145 army supply to 115. Imagine if he brought some SCVs to tank at the front. Those Zealots, they would have cut them down, but I guess... if he could just, I guess, tank a little bit more for his army, because like now he didn't really have any tanking power other than for a bunch of Hellbats that died pretty much instantly in that fight.
He's moved around to the left-hand side here now, going to maybe take an engagement from a different angle, but I think the Protoss army may have already spotted this. He just have to be very, very careful about where he's moving here.
Lilbow, I don't think he actually wants to engage just yet. He's trying to buy time for his upgrades to complete, but then again, if Kelazhur goes up that ramp and then Lilbow can get a good fight where like the entire army of Kelazhur is clumped.
This is a very interesting move. I wasn't expecting him to take this angle. As Kelazhur now, some of the siege tanks are at the front there though, so he will take quite a bit of splash damage pretty quickly. There's only one Colossus though, and that's going to die off. This is quite the okay choke here for Kelazhur to take this fight into. The 2 Immortals are doing a lot of damage. Vikings are going to have to land as well to battle this off. And there's only one siege tank left at the back. Extra reinforcements coming along here for Lilbow as well. A very, very close fight, but in the end, Lilbow looks to win on out here, blinking forwards, bringing down some of those medevacs. Very, very important units for him to keep alive, and he's going to have to evacuate on out.
And this fight happened just before the Terran upgrades completed. Look at this. They just completed here. I think Kelazhur just sieged down there thinking he was fine and Lilbow would never attack into this, but
Yeah.
I guess Lilbow not even knowing about this, he got his upgrades and he was comfortable enough to attack into this, he crushed his army, and now at this point it's pretty much unlosable for him.
It was a very interesting angle, Todd. Would he have been better going elsewhere with that kind of force? Do you think that was the window that he had to hit to try and end this game?
I think so, yeah. Trying to get a good fight is like the best option here. The thing is, Lilbow had too much anyway, and he was way way better upgrades. I think he was 3-2 against 1-1 in that fight, so that's why he won it so easily. Now he's just gonna fly to another base, Warcraft 3 Night Elf style, as I like to call it. But
yeah,
I mean, at this point, Lilbow is really gonna start taking off, you know, in army here.
Yeah, if you don't have a third command center, this is a big window where he does actually propel himself forwards in the economy.
He's still warping in Stalkers. I think he wants to finish the game. You don't warp in Stalkers at this point in the game to have like a valuable army to go, you know, Death Ball versus Death Ball with like big armies. I think he just wants to finish the game.
Well, at the moment there's only 3 siege tanks and they're positioned in such a way that it's only really defending the third base. It looks like he's just going to cross this location, and I mean, how is he supposed to actually get back and defend his natural if he really wants to walk up? Lilbow was forcing him into quite a dangerous situation here.
Yeah, I mean, he could get attacked from 2 sides, but the reinforcements are coming out very slowly. It's only 3 factories and 2 barracks pumping out units here right now for Kelazhur. Ideally, Kelazhur, he wants to fight with his tank sieged and with Lilbow attacking into him. That's the ideal scenario. Not even saying that he would win that, but that's how you want to fight when you have this army here that he has.
At least he has vision on it. Going to actually power on forwards here. Some of the Archons will tank some of those shots at the front from the siege tanks as well. Blinking on forwards to get on top of those big damage-dealing units. And that's an absolute slaughter as Lilbow here takes a brilliant engagement. He had enough to deal with it. There is a small bit of counter-aggression towards a third base going on, but I don't think it's going to be enough here for Kelazhur to bring himself back.
Yeah, Kelazhur actually the one struggling to take a third base here on this map because of the style that he played, to which Lilbow adjusted well enough. He didn't know about it at first, but as soon as he saw that mech play, he knew to make just the attack upgrades and went for Immortals and Archons and Chargeless and then just did really well. Didn't take a third base, man.
Yeah.
I would have been on autopilot, I'm telling you right now. I would have taken a third base and died to this. This is the classic mistake. But Lilbow, too good for this in the first game, really paying respect to Kelazhur, scouting enough. And in the end, I think he's going to be enough.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's all too easy for you as a Protoss player to say, I have double forge, it's time for double upgrades again. But you saw, he didn't commit to the +2, was able to, +2 armor, I should say, was able to batter off that. It may have been those little bit of extra resources that come along, but it could, even if it wasn't, it's those little things that matter and those small, subtle changes to Lilbow's play in a reactionary style that allow him to end up doing so well in this game.
It's really seeing that there was no third and not taking his own third that I think made him win. Because he had 115 army supply to 145 during the big push. Imagine if he had started a third base instead of getting the additional gates. Yeah. I think he would have just died against this timing.
I think so.
So it was just brilliant scout by him. And you know, it's actually sometimes can be decently hard to scout a third base by the turn. So sometimes you just assume it's there and you take another base as Protoss. But Lilbow waited for that to happen, and now he's just going to finish off Kelazhur.
Yeah, this is the crushing move. GG. Lilbow will be able to take game #1 in this best-of-3 series after a well-played out, slightly reactionary style there from Lilbow. Obviously, he was seizing the advantage with how he was going in terms of his composition. We saw him get up to 4 Colossi very quickly, but then once he'd able to scout everything out and then greet it, he did well in that game. Very well.
A little bit disappointed with Kelazhur's attempt. On one hand, I'm impressed, you know, that he tries that in game 1 of a series, but I think he'd be much better off trying to place, you know, solid at standard, you know, just play bio, do some drops here and there, do some good Widowmine drops, because he has some of the, I think, better drop play out of the Terrans out there that I've played against personally. I played him not too long ago, actually. I was streaming, he was on a barcode, then later on I realized it was him, and we played some nice games, and like he was dropping a lot, and when you play against him, you feel the hit of those drops, man. So I hope he brings it here in game 2 on Cactus Valley.
But likewise, he had no opportunity. Really no opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, with the build that he went for here,
yeah.
You can't really drop with tanks.
I mean, of course, yeah.
This is not Legacy. So.
There was the initial kind of poke around with the Widowmines, but having one of them picked off by the Oracle, which you really don't see that commonly, actually. So I think that was good foresight by Lilbow to say, oh, you do have these Widowmines? Let me just remove half of that threat to start things off. And then when you actually do try and go for the drop, you have no punch whatsoever.
I think if he went for something like a gas first and opened like a very quick widow mine drop, I think it would have been better because Lilbow didn't scout in start, did he? I don't think he did.
I don't.
No, yeah, I don't think he scouted until like kind of late. Yeah, he scouted like about the time his Oracle was about to come out. So, and he scouted in the wrong direction too. So his Oracle got into the base.
You're correct.
Yeah, got into the base of the Terran. That's first he saw the Terran, even though he knew that he was there. So a widow mine drop against an opener, a Stargate opener like this, where you open on one base and gas first from the Terran, can do a lot of damage and put you very far ahead in this kind of game. But I guess rather than do that, he wanted to do the unexpected and some kind of biomech push, which didn't really bring him any success. The jacket's coming off.
It's coming off. It's coming off. He means business now. Game number 2. It's going to be on Cactus Valley here, Todd. So what do you make of this map in this matchup? Obviously, Rotterdam even, I should say, on the desk mentioned a little bit as to how this map can play out. But what do you feel about Cactus Valley?
Well, Roddy doesn't know anything about how this map can play out because all he do is proxy Stargates and Tempest and even Phoenixes, dude. Roddy's the craziest. I'm joking, of course. But
of course.
I'll get on it in a second.
Well, game number 2 now as we get into this second match between Kelazhur and Lilbow. Spawning down to the bottom left-hand corner, it is our red Protoss. One game up in this best of 3 to start things. It is Lilbow. And up to the top left-hand corner, arguably the challenger here in this game. Gonna have to bring it. Representing Team Root, it is Kelazhur.
Kelazhur, who had a very successful challenger match against Cats. I think he won 3-0, very convincing. But now he's not up against the Zerg, he's up against the Protoss, and he's down 1 game, so it's time to play to the best of his capability. I want to see some Medivac drops, I want entertainment. I only don't want to see those Medivac drops when I'm playing against Terran, but it still happens every time, Kelazhur.
It still happens every time. I'm sorry, Todd. I'm sorry for your losses. If they are losses, I mean, I don't know. You could be winning.
They are. No.
All right. Well, once again, this is another rotationally symmetrical map here, which, you know, it is newer. It is newer than some of the maps that we've seen before. Iron Fortress is actually something that we've seen quite a bit because it was introduced into GSL. We've seen it for a while there. But Cactus Valley is a bit fresher. It's very, very open in the middle, and there's a lot of opportunities for counterattacks, which is important. This choke point that we're seeing actually Funker illustrate at the moment is so important on this map, I feel. I've seen games decided time and time again by that choke point alone.
Command Center first year once again by Kelazhur on 4 players map. It's very, very common. Can't really be punished, you know, by any rush unless you were to, I guess, proxy a gate in the middle of the map at 10 and then Zealot rush. But even that, like, most Terrans wouldn't know how to, you know, salvage the situation and defend well enough. And in this game, Lilbow is again gonna go for the second gas here right after the Cybercore, which doesn't necessarily mean he wants to commit to, you know, gas tech. He could just, you know, put very few walkers on that and then take a natural. But if Kelazhur scouts well here, he's already gonna get a glimpse into what exactly he might be facing later on.
Well, we're just going on down here to make sure that nothing crazy is going on. Maybe even an engineering bay block if he really wants to. The Zealot is in production, so it wouldn't have too much of a huge effect as long as Lilbow is able to scout that out. He's actually already got it rallied down and see it with the probe, so he will not cancel the Zealot and make sure that he can clean this up as quickly as possible.
Yeah, this is gonna delay the expansion a little bit here, and Lilbow behind this, you know, he already has double gas. Does he decide to commit more on this? He already threw down a 3rd pylon knowing that, you know, he's going to be needing to spend that money somewhere. Kelazhur gets out of there with the SCV. Twilight this game, maybe?
Perhaps. We saw Lilbow do a lot of blink aggression and stuff like that. How well does something like that work on Cactus Valley, though? Because I think the entrance to the main base for blink is a bit difficult, but you can put pressure on at the front, right?
Yeah. I guess he's Stargate, so we don't need to cover that too much. I mean, if he went for blink, there is a few ways, you know, you can blink straight from like outside that 3rd base into the main, but on this map, it's still very, very hard to make work, especially if your opponent realizes it early enough that it's that is the blink. So I think it's better in general maybe to go for Stargate like Lilbow is doing here. I mean, he did very well with in the previous game with this, and the probe.
it's not even just you have to do damage with it or something for like Lilbow. We saw him using Revelation a lot to keep tracks and tabs on his opponent's army if and when it was going to move out, and also got a good idea of its composition and its makeup, so he can tailor his build and his composition around it as well. So I think that's something for Oracles that Lilbow used very well in that previous game.
I really like that Lilbow is scouting, by the way. Like, he's not scouting very early on, but you see some Protosses sometimes not scout for a very, very long time in a game. Sometimes as long as, you know, they don't have observers. Their first observer is going to be the scout that they send across the map, and they get surprised by either, you know, some drops, some quick third command center, and then it's already very, very late to react accordingly. So in this game, even though he was going for an Oracle and he knows he's going to have to fly around, he sent a probe out on the map. He knows where the Terran is. He saw that there was a few Marines, knows that behind this either, you know, it's going to be a bunch of barracks or maybe some factory tech already. And this time Kelazhur wants to prepare for the Oracle accordingly, and it's going to be a turret in every single mineral line.
Marines sat on the very, very edge of this rounder as well. Oh, but he just darts on around them. That was a little bit less expected as Kelazhur was juked out there by Lilbow.
That looked like Apollo's driving in that intro video today, dropping off the players.
Perfect little shimmy around.
Perfect and smooth.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Well, maybe get himself an SCV or two. I think he may have just got one, but that's about it to start things off. And when the scan actually dropped for Kelazhur into Lilbow's base, he didn't spot that pylon to the right-hand side, which there is a potential that you've seen Lilbow do these big kind of crazy gateway builds. So he could drop a lot down there and maybe be caught off guard if Kelazhur doesn't get the follow-up scout.
Yeah, the thing is, it's risky. If your Terran, you know, drops there and sees them, then it's gateways are gone, then it's revealed. So I think Lilbow has every intention this game of playing kind of similarly to the last game, at least at first here on 2 base, up until the point he realized what he's up against. But being against somebody that's on 3 barracks, there isn't really much that Kelazhur could do to really surprise Lilbow. So I think this is going to be the straight-up game that you know, I was hoping for here. Why the Phoenix though? I'm a little bit surprised.
Not 100% sure. I guess, you know, to try and maybe put a timer on medevacs if they want to come in, and that Phoenix lived a very uneventful life, let's be honest.
You know, usually, like, when you play like this here and you open Stargate like that, later on, when you already have your tech going and you know that your opponent has a... Oh, wow.
No. Ooh, okay, so got a little bit of extra damage done off on there. Oh, came back in. So good focus fire to bring that down and see. And he gets the mothership core as well. Good focus fire there by Kelazhur.
Really nicely done. Okay, when you open Stargate like this and you have an Oracle, later on when you start having your tech and you know that your opponent's going to have medivacs or has them, getting 1 or 2 Phoenixes, you can put them in patrol rather than observers around your bases. We've seen Protosses like a Parting do that a lot, and there isn't a factory, right? That's 5 racks.
I think so. Looks like
Kelazhur. Do you know why? Because he killed the mothership core. He's like, well, I'm just going to power through with some bio. The thing is, Combat Shield and Stimpack are going to finish in a while. Finally, the factory goes down behind this. So it's not going to be a pure all-in with, you know, just the barracks. But still, like, this is a massive commitment to bio-aggression here.
I've got to ask, do you think that Lilbow here, once again, can get away with a double Forge play? Considering, well, he has this first Colossus out. Can that hold on?
He needs to keep it alive. If he loses this first Colossus, Kelazhur, the next wave is going to be quite deadly. Lilbow is an observer just right outside the natural of Kelazhur, and he saw a lot of these bio units move across the map. So I think he kind of knows. Let's see. Oh, he's trying to take the main. The observer is going to fly right into a turret. And so he doesn't spot the additional barracks. Not even the factory. If he had clicked on the factory, I think he would have been able to realize that it's a very late factory. Photon overcharge is now back up. The first one at least. 2 Colossi out. And look, he remakes a Phoenix. I think that's for the patrol around his base. At this point, I like Lilbow's position, I think.
Great scan there by Kelazhur. Pretty much confirms everything he's up against at the moment. He sees the Twilight Council, he sees Double Forge, he sees that Robo whirring away as well. Extra Phoenix are being added, and I think he may have spotted that as well with that scan, right? So he certainly knows what's up as Kelazhur.
Lilbow gonna go up to 6 gates here. I think there is an armory, but I don't think there is 2 E-bays. Yeah, there is 1 single E-bay.
Second one's just being added now.
Okay.
So, oh wait, no, was it just the armory actually back there? Oh, well, regardless. Yeah, it's just the armory being added.
I think he's just 1 E-bay, so maybe just attack upgrades and then some kind of timing when he has enough Vikings. I'm a little bit surprised that Kelazhur doesn't go for a second starport earlier, but maybe we'll add it here in a moment.
This Phoenix getting good information as well, keeping eyes and tabs on that. Obviously, losing the Oracle before, he doesn't really have too much mobile detection. If you want to go for an Observer, okay, sure, but Phoenix is actually really keeping good eyes on it.
Lilbow's moving out, even though there's a massive chunk of army here from Kelazhur. Wow, Phoenix not really being very careful. Phoenixes are like an endangered species here in this game. They just come out and die right out.
Well, the scans keep dropping down. He does spot this army slowly lurking around in the middle of the map.
Only 2 medivacs. Oh, that's nice that Kelazhur is going to get a cancel here on that pylon for him.
So Phoenix will end up flying in. They're gone now. They're completely
Fulfill his
extinct.
destiny.
As it looks like Lilbow is just going to head back on home. Any timing that he wants to hit there, very difficult against an army this large, because he had those 5 racks out, pumping away at this bio. Army supply at the moment, 80 to 71, not the biggest of discrepancies, but you got to babysit those Colossi, not like nothing else.
Yeah, he has a few force fields and at least some time warps to work with. The thing is, drops, man. Drops on this map can be quite deadly, and these 2 forges, the position, it looks like they're asking to get sniped.
Yeah,
you don't put 2 forges like in the right-hand side of your main. It's like, as soon as the Terran drops, he's gonna have a cash money sign appear in his eye.
Yeah, if he can put down pylons towards the bottom, actually I think he is doing already. He's putting down a pylon down to the bottom right to just kind of keep eyes and tabs on if anything goes on down towards that direction, which is really, really good.
Lilbow's out of position.
There's 1 cannon there, but his entire army is away.
Oh, there is, I guess, a few zealots in a single Colossus.
Yeah, that should be enough. Should be enough. Good little division up there by Lilbow. Underestimated how much he actually had over at the 3rd base, or overestimated it, I should say, as he will also defend that 3rd location as well.
Second starport about to finish, and Kelazhur needs to get out of there with the medivac. He's going to lose one of those with some units inside. Maybe the other one.
Oh, it's so close. Oh, 1 more shot would have done it. He barely gets out of there. Slight mishap there from Kelazhur, letting at least one of those die.
Yeah. And I'm actually a little bit surprised that he didn't add a reactor, or at least swap, the second starport with the factory here, because he needs way more medivacs out as soon as possible. Unless he wants to go for a Maru, mass medivac style with a lot of drop. But so far, well, it's not quite look like Maru. Rather the opposite, because his medivac drops haven't really done anything.
That's a bit tough at the moment. Lilbow is currently on lockdown. He has quite a few Colossi out as well at the moment. 6 in total, going up against 0 Vikings.
One thing that I've seen before that Lilbow has done that sometimes cost him game is starting 3-3 a little bit too early and then dying to an SCV pool. So I'm not sure whether Kelazhur wants to go for an SCV pool here. So far, I would say no, but it's definitely not out of the question.
The bottom right-hand of this map is a minefield of pylons that are trying to spot this. I can't believe he's not actually spotting that, going straight through the middle of it.
He's going to see it, but very, very late. These are like the Zest pylons, man. Zest was one of the first Protosses to do that a lot and did very well for himself against Tian for a very long time.
Finally catches it with one of those pylons down there. So again, completely littered and gives him good vision to be able to spot it. But it is 5 medivacs. He's going to drop straight onto 4 of these stalkers. They blink back, but
Lilbow stayed out of the vision of the scan at the 3rd base here. So this army, he's trying to catch it. He's catching a lot of this chunk of the army of Kelazhur around the right-hand side.
Came around on the high ground though and weren't able to really get onto the Colossi super quickly, and also the gateway forces are now back there to be able to protect them. And he's trying to intercept, going for a little bit of a move down towards the bottom right-hand side. Already gets himself one of the medivacs. This bio drops on down and he'll have to just get out of there for now. So yeah, he gets himself a pylon, but was that really worth it here for Kelazhur?
I don't think so. Look at it, swapping on the stalkers on the right-hand side. Lilbow's trying to catch a lot of those units. He might finally go for a counter-attack here. Up to 25 stalkers.
It's a lot of firepower. 3-3's not done yet here for the Terran. It is in production.
2 Vikings against 6 Colossi.
This is where this is just going to be a massacre if he's not careful. He has to come in, surely, from multiple angles here to try and shut this down. But his army is so low already, he doesn't have the medevac power to be able to heal all this up before an engagement potentially comes.
Lilbow has done his homework, Elias. He knew that Kelazhur is a dropping Terran, so he just sat back, walked in a lot of stalkers, waited for Kelazhur to drop, defended, and now he's on the counter-attack, much like we've seen Rain do a lot recently. You just wait until the Terran finally loses too much, and then you go for the counter-attack. He never started 3-3.
Yeah.
He just made additional gates. He has a lot of gateways. Look at his minerals. he really hasn't lost too much this game.
This is going to get a bit ugly here as Kelazhur realizes he can't take the straight-up engagement against his opponent's army, so he's trying to drop. Here come the reinforcements, though, to try and push this away. Still, the bio has to stay away from these Colossi because there is only 4 Vikings. They're not going to do the job in time. One of them already rapidly falls, and there's a lot of SCVs dying off as well. A good chunk of his economy absolutely falls down the drain. And at the moment, Lilbow with this counter-attack, I don't even think he's going to be broken at home, to be honest, either.
Yeah, he's defended this completely here. And on the other side of the map, with just 7 Vikings against 6 Colossi, still in trouble. Lilbow is making it look easy so far. I think he's going to be able to finish here at this point. Kelazhur really doesn't have much left.
Really well played out here by Lilbow. There was, I think, an oversight really on Kelazhur's part to not have the Vikings necessary to deal with this kind of push coming out from Lilbow, but it's monstrous at the moment as he is knocking on his door, and Kelazhur, he has to answer, unfortunately, but he really, really doesn't want to. Blinking forward's going to kill off even more of these Vikings. That's going to give them free reign to do whatever they want. 3-3 didn't even finish up before that was gone. GG. Lilbow is able to take the first series of the day, 2-0 at the World Championship Series.
That's the solid standard play that, you know, I've come to expect of him at times, but that he really, you know, delivered super convincingly here in this series. Every time I speak to him, that's what he tells me he likes to play. But then every time I see his series versus Stern, it's like 7-gate blink, you know, cheese here, all in there. But in this series, really, you know, brought the standard, you know, macro game, I guess, PvT that you can play, other than for the Oracle opener, which is not necessarily the standard, you know.
Yeah.
But he used that very, very well. Kept his Oracle alive, revealed the army a few times, and did well for himself.
Yeah, I think for Lilbow coming into this group, at least my opinion, is that he sees probably Kelazhur as a road bump on his way to try and advance to the round of 16. But then the real challenge for him comes in his next match. Who is it going to be, Snoot or Hydra? Obviously, this group is extremely stacked with those three, along with Kelazhur, obviously, like really starting to rise up the ranks now as well. But Kelazhur has a really, really tough time ahead of him now, I feel.
Yeah, against either Snoot or Hydra, man. I wouldn't like to be in his position, but he still can do it. I mean, he's a good player. He just clearly, I guess, got outplayed here and tried some things that just didn't work, especially in the first game. You know, it's a big risk in a match like this to go for something like that against somebody as solid as Lilbow. You're kind of hoping, maybe, you know, he won't play to the best of his capability. Maybe he's going to choke a little bit. Maybe he's not going to react properly, but in this case, Lilbow did, and a very convincing win.
All right, well, that concludes game number 1 here, our series number 1 for the day. Let's head over to our winner to hear some of his thoughts on that series.
Thank you very much, Kalaris. I am joined here with the winner of our first game of the day, the first game of the second half of the round of 32. Congratulations, Lilbow. Must be a bit of a relief to start the day with a victory.
Yeah, actually, I was quite stressed because, like, today I played only PvZ, but because I couldn't find any Terran, like I was supposed to practice with Marine Lord, but he never woke up, so like I feel good in PvZ, but I was not too sure about how I will play in PvT, but apparently I'm still okay.
Well, you looked very confident in those games, taking a nice clean 2-0. I did want to ask you just about that first game, going up against a bit of a crazy mech strategy, kind of biomech. At what point in that game did you realize what you were facing?
When I saw the second factory with my observer, I was just like, okay, I will win, because like mech is not really good anyway, and especially on Iron Fortress, like the map is super open, you can take a fight as you want, so like I can understand he wants to play one game with mech, but I don't know why Iron Fortress is basically the worst map for it.
Yeah, I mean, you dealt with it really, really well. I was interested when I saw so many Hellbats coming out and you were building a lot of, you were getting charge, and I was thinking, you know, maybe if the positioning's really good, the Zealots won't be that great. But then Iron Fortress, like you said, it was very wide open there. On top of that composition, you know, you're adding the Archons and so on. Have you ever played against that biomech mix before?
Yeah, I think one time against Bunny on Vani, and I got crushed.
So how do you like adjust? I mean, you load into the game, you're not really expecting that to happen. How does it as a player to adjust up there to this?
Well, I think Bunny just has a better macro. Like he basically had more units than Kelazhur. Like Kelazhur, I think is playing a bit too safe. Like in the last game, I just saw scans everywhere and stuff, and I don't even know why. So I think he should be a bit more greedy.
How do you think Kelazhur's going to do in today's group? Did you feel strength when you played against him, or a little bit weak?
Well, I think he's more afraid by Snoot and Hydra than me. And against me, he played very special, so I think he's not very confident.
Yeah, question pick here?
The one most important question, which we haven't asked yet, Cactus Valley. Now, all the commentators were all very kind of a bit like, wow, you didn't veto Cactus Valley. Why did you choose to play that map?
Because Inferno and Vani are worst.
All right, so you actually prefer it over Vani.
Yeah, I think Cactus Valley is pretty decent. Like maybe it's a very little bit advantage for Terran, but I think it's still very playable, I guess.
So quick 2 questions here before we get ready for the next game here. Zerg next, big game going up against either one of the next 2 players, Snoot or Hydra. You've started to make a bit of a name for yourself with Protoss versus Zerg. Depending on who you play, I mean, let's just not put a name to it. How confident are you in Protoss versus Zerg right now?
Very confident.
Yeah?
Like very confident.
You confident to take these guys down?
I'm not too sure about Hydra because he used to play a lot of Swarmos when Swarmos was still viable, so I'm not too sure how he is playing now, if he's still very good in ZVP or not.
And how is it knowing, I mean, we talked about it a little bit earlier today, there's a lot of French people watching today, there's a lot of people cheering for you, especially with the advancement of Marine Lord in the North American groups. Does that add any extra pressure to you? Do you want to perform so they're cheering for you back at home?
Yeah, actually I feel like I have to go through the group because like Marine Lord already make it through and 4GG as well, so I'm the last Millennium player who has to make it. And also Marine Lord did it and I don't want him to be alone in the round of 16, so I have to win.
Well, let's wish you the best of luck for that next game. It's going to be a very good game, and we'll see Lilbow in the winners match in a little bit. But let's take a quick look at the bracket just to show you what our next game is going to be and to confirm the placement of Lilbow here in the winning match. He goes through with a 2-0 versus Kelazhur. Our next game, Hydra versus Snoot. A massive match coming up between these 2 titans of Group E. Which player is going to be going through the winners match to play versus Lilbow? Which player is going to go down to the lower bracket? Can Snoot continue his performances towards BlizzCon, or is the Season 1 finalist going through to the winners map? We'll be right back.